Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Shelby County Sheriff Floyd Bonner tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Floyd Bonner, Sheriff, Shelby County. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
Along with Bill Drees, reporter with the Daily Memphian. We'll talk about a lot today, but we'll start with hiring. It is a challenge, the Memphis Police Department has talked about it. I believe it's a challenge nationally of hiring police officers, law enforcement officers. Let me lay the groundwork here. You've got about 585, almost 600 people on your staff who are correction officers. Right. What lay people would think of as a guard at the jail. You've got about 700 who are law enforcement, patrolling, unincorporated Shelby County, working on gang units, other kinds of things that we'll talk about. You're looking to hire 200.
Yes.
Those 200 will be doing what?
Well, we're trying to hire 200 officers for our correction staff. Right now, Eric, we're really making a strong push for correction officers. Being 200 short, we're offering $5,000 incentive hiring and retention bonuses. We're even offering our employees $1,000 if they refer someone to us that actually gets through the entire process. So we've been going out into the community. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were at Riverside Baptist Church. On October the 23rd, we will be at New Salem's Missionary Baptist Church on Parkway, Dr. Ray's church. We'll be there from 10 to 2. We'll have our HR department there to help people with applications, help filling them out, and then even some of the chiefs will be there to do a first interview.
And is this 200 net new officers, or have you just seen a loss in the number of, and I apologize if I use the terms officer and law enforcement interchangeably here, but no. What is driving this need?
Well, just since this year alone, we've had 57 officers to leave out of corrections for various reasons. Some have retired, then you have firings, you have people that just don't want to do the work anymore. So, when you lose 57 in just 8-9 months, it really makes a huge impact on the operations right now. So we're trying to get our numbers back up, get that number up to a very comfortable number where we're not doing mandatory overtime or anything like that. And that, just a little less stress for the officers working in the jail.
We'll come back to the jail. I want to do one more question. I'll go to Bill about, and so is any of this hiring driven by either you all took over some of unincorporated Shelby County as part of de-annexation to do patrolling and more what people think of as policing. Did that drive any of this need?
No, that didn't.
That didn't.
Because law enforcement and then correction. So
Okay.
you kind of look at it two-sided with the sheriff's office.
And then this last year, the whole country, I think the FBI came out with numbers that violent crime was up some 20%, just 30% nationally. It's up locally. There is a crime problem in this country and in this city and region. Is that also driving the need?
Well, it's driving our numbers in that, with more crime, more people are going to get arrested. The need for correction officers is still very much so. It's a very good profession. We've even raised the pay. We started off at $41,000, almost $42,000, and with a new correction officer coming in, then with that $5,000 hiring and retention bonus, your first year you could make close to $45,000 with benefits and everything. Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of things that's driving it. We're no different than anyone else in the community. We're having problems hiring. I'm only about 75 law enforcement officers down. We're in pretty good shape there. We're getting ready.
Still a lot, though.
Still a lot.
But it's 10%ish of your number.
Right. But we're still able to function and participate in all the task force and all of those things that we're doing right now. And we'll hire another class in December. Okay. So we'll keep that. We're really trying to keep a close watch on our numbers.
Okay, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, so what is your response to violent crime specifically in the city? Because as we mentioned, your area in unincorporated Shelby County has actually increased with the de-annexations. But what is the Sheriff's Department's role in violent crime within the city of Memphis?
Well, Bill, the sheriff's office inside the city of Memphis, naturally Memphis has their own police department. Chief Davis and I have really become good friends after she's taken over from Director Rollins, and we have collaborated with different issues that were going on in Memphis. Slow Down Memphis. We have a Metro Gang unit that we participate in. Our narcotics unit works inside the city limit most of the time. I say at least 90 to 95% of the time. So we feel like that we're doing our part, and we're going to do more as much as we can. I've never told the city of Memphis, the police department, no. Jim Strickland and I, Mayor Strickland, we've had conversations when he's asked for help on certain issues. We've been able to do it. So we will continue that. We, the Sheriff's Office, do not necessarily have access to all of Memphis crime data like we do with our own. So when there's a problem or when there's an issue, and I see it on the news just like you do, but when there are specific issues that we can help, certainly we're going to be there.
Mm-hmm. As we record this, I think in the last week, you formally announced that you'll be running for another 4-year term.
Yes, sir.
And in talking about the last 4 years, you talked about how the pandemic, COVID-19, has really not only hit your agency, but it's had an impact on the role of law enforcement overall. What have you not been able to do in the past 4 years because of that you had hoped to do?
Well, just me as the sheriff, being able to get out in the community, to talk with people, to form these partnerships and relationships, the things that I really, really hold value. And I think that can really make a difference in our city and the crime. I think it's very important for me to be out visible, being a role model, seeing small children, talking to small children, coming from Orange Mound and Westwood, growing up in those neighborhoods. I think it's very important. I said when I was first elected, I didn't ever want anybody to not know what a sheriff's office uniform looks like. So the last year and a half, 2 years, basically we've been inside. So I'm looking forward to us turning the corner with COVID. It certainly has affected our operations in the sheriff's office. We've had 495 officers that have tested positive over the past year and a half. I've lost 4 correction deputies due to death and 1 law enforcement due to death due to COVID. So when you see a person that's worked beside you for years and years and they're no longer there, then it mentally, we're having to task our mental health providers to help us through all of these things. So those are some of the things that I hope to accomplish, and just hadn't been able to get it done because of COVID. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's also been litigation over conditions at the county jail during this. Where do you feel like the facility is in terms of taking those COVID precautions for people who are, we should point out, pretrial detainees?
Yeah, I'm glad you did point that out, Bill, because we are a pretrial facility, meaning that people are there in our facility because, one, they don't make bond or the cases hadn't been heard yet. So it's not like a jail or penitentiary or correction center, whatever you want to call it. But our jail, it's not that way. Our population flows constantly, up and down. I think as of today, we were at 2,100 inmates, detainees, if you will, at the jail. Right now, we have vaccinated over about 650 people that, now not to say that entire 650 is still with us, as I said.
That's over since whatever that would be.
Right. When
January, March, February.
When Governor Lee gave us permission to start vaccinating, we're using Johnson & Johnson. We're cleaning, we're doing everything that we know to do. And we are tied up in this lawsuit and we're talking about it, but we're doing all that we can do. We have vaccinations every Thursday. I think this past Thursday we had 25. We're paying detainees $20 to take the vaccine. We just had a raffle yesterday where 3 of our detainees received $100 because they had been vaccinated. We're doing pizza parties in the pods for the most detainees in a pod that have been vaccinated. We're providing pizza parties for them. So, we're providing education information. One of the things, especially in the African American community, you hear about the Tuskegee experiment, and a lot of times we don't always know what that Tuskegee experiment is all about. So we're providing education paper-wise as well as videos with Barack Obama, LeBron James, trying to encourage the inmates, and no one is being penalized for not taking the vaccine. It's a personal choice, I get it, but we're not making any detainees take the vaccine, but we are highly encouraging them and trying to give them incentives to do that.
What other precautions are you able to take? I mean, are detainees masked?
We were masked because we saw COVID coming early on, and we were starting to gear up with our cleaning materials and everything. Right at the beginning, I got over 2,000 masks, received over 2,000 masks from the state, because of the partnerships that I formed. I was able to pick up the telephone, and they sent me 2,000 masks immediately. Our females are housed out at Jail East, and out there at Jail East, we had the detainees out there making masks for us. So, we had officers in masks immediately. We provided masks for the detainees pretty much very on at the very beginning.
And then testing wise, I mean, what is your testing regimen now?
Well, we're testing each and every, you can't make anyone take a test. You remember, I think maybe a few months ago, we had a big high number where we tested positive, and we went throughout the entire facility asking all of those detainees who wants to be tested. And naturally, not knowing what COVID was all about and people coming in and out of the facility and everything, that's why we had a big number from the very beginning. But now when a detainee comes to jail, they are automatically quarantined for 2 weeks.
Oh, so on intake?
In intake, when you first enter our facility, you're going to be quarantined. And the questions are asked, have you been vaccinated? One of our challenges that we're trying to get over right now is to get a vaccine down there at the facility where we can do it on site. If a detainee comes in and says, no, I hadn't been vaccinated, however, I would like to be vaccinated.
You'd like to do it right away.
We want to do it right then before they change their mind.
So if someone, do you have any sense of the percentage of detainees who choose to get tested on a regular basis? I mean, is it maybe a quarter? Is it less than even that much?
It's probably less than a quarter,
And then what happens if someone tests positive? Are they then quarantined? And
They're
what does that
quarantined.
mean? Quarantined? They're in a jail in a cell alone.
That's just like you would. For instance, if you tested positive, everyone in your house would quarantine.
Well, but I'm not
you
in
would
jail.
do it.
So
But
I'm just trying to get a lay of the land.
But what I'm saying is, you would do it at home, where an entire pod would have to quarantine.
Okay.
So we're talking probably close to 40 people.
Right.
They're going to have to be isolated, quarantined for a couple of weeks.
And is that caused? I mean, there's one of our reporters had gotten, I guess, letters from people inside that an immense amount of frustration. There were some, protests or some fires. What kind of reaction and response have you had from the population to this quarantining and this isolation?
Well, we hadn't had any fires or anything, but sure, they're disappointed because they can't get out and make phone calls, talk with their loved ones. They can't do the normal things that they would do during rec time and stuff. So yes, it's stress on them, stress on the staff, because now you're asking officers to go in there in that particular pod where someone is tested positive for COVID. We have PPE equipment for our officers and stuff, but it creates a lot of stress for everyone.
Last, before I go back to Bill, are you requiring vaccines of guards?
Not requiring vaccines for anyone.
Okay. About what level of uptake can you say have you had vaccination among your staff?
I can't really say, Eric, because of the HIPAA laws and stuff. I don't really,
Yeah.
I'm not making them take vaccines.
Okay. Bill.
The County Commission voted this past week to accept a report from the Juvenile Justice Consortium that takes the position that the U.S. Justice Department should again become involved in some kind of oversight over juvenile court. And your part of this is not the court, but it is the Juvenile Detention Center. Do you think the Justice Department needs to come back in and at least take a look at how things work in your part of the system?
Well, Bill, I have no issues if the Justice Department wants to come back to take a look at this. In 2018, when I was elected, I hired Dr. David Roush as a consultant. He was one of our harshest critics. As a matter of fact, when we offered Dr. Roush an opportunity to be a consultant for us, he was really surprised because he said, golly, man, I kind of rough you guys up. But Bill, that's what we wanted. I mean, we want to be the best that we can be. So we hired Dr. Roush, and we presented a letter to the county commission. We're trying to let them know that we're doing it the right way. Our room confinements are down. Our juveniles are having what they call circle up meetings several times during the day. And this gives the juvenile an opportunity to get some things off his chest. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. Our room confinement is down. So if DOJ wants to come in and talk to us or take a look at what we're doing, we welcome it. I mean, we're not afraid of it at all. We think we're really moving. The accolades that we received from the Annie Casey Foundation, Mark Solar, and all of those. So we only want the best for the kids. And that's what I get a little frustrated about, because all of us want the same thing, but we don't always talk. And so I would just relish the opportunity, even with the consortium. They presented a report to the county commission that was in 2019. The last time we really heard from someone from there was in 2020, and basically she's no longer with the consortium anymore. And she asked us what we needed, and we told her books, reading material, artwork and stuff, and she provided a ton of it. So for this consortium to go in front of the county commission about a 2019 report, not reading all the information that we had, all of the things that we've done to better juvenile court, was a bit disappointing for me, but we're not afraid of it.
And to let people know, the sheriff's office does not make any decisions about who is detained in terms of juvenile court. That the juveniles come to you as a result of a court decision to hold them in custody or not hold them in custody, right?
Well, we do in a sense, because I have officers that are out on the street. We do not have anything to do with transfers, and I think that's the big issue that some people are really concerned about: who stays as a juvenile, who's being transferred to adult court. Now that's strictly juvenile court. That's Judge Michael, and they make those decisions. We're only responsible for detention.
All right. You've participated along with other leaders in the criminal justice system in some of the marches that have taken place in areas that have been hit hard by violent crime. There have been so many marches over so many years that I'm sure you've participated in even before you were sheriff. Yeah. What is it about that experience? Is this an opportunity to put a spotlight on violent crime, to say we know it's here, or what purpose do you think that serves?
Well, I think, Bill, anytime you get a chance to engage in a community, especially certain sections of our community that is experiencing high rates of violent crime, and to know or let those citizens know that we are behind them. We want to see the violent crime drop just like everyone else. If you look at, my wife goes to the mall. I don't, but my wife goes to the mall, and everyone goes to the mall. So a safer Memphis, a safer Shelby County is going to make it safe for all of us. So myself being out there as sheriff, I think it's very important for me to be there. And I so appreciate Stevie Moore and the Memphis Crime Commission for what they're doing and putting these walks together and stuff, because we get a chance to actually talk to citizens in the community, and they cheer us on a lot of times. Yeah.
Go ahead.
In the last week, we've had an active, what's known as an active shooter incident in Collierville.
I should say that we're taping this on Tuesday this week, and that still could be a fluid situation, but go ahead.
Mm-hmm. From a law enforcement perspective, I think you kind of look at these incidents on a broader continuum of violence as opposed to just isolating them, correct?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and Bill, I've kind of looked at some numbers, and we've had, I think the number was 57 already this year. Those type of active shooters incidents, 57 already. And what surprises me, and a lot of people say that, you know, I was surprised that it happened in Collierville. And then I started thinking about it. I said, you know, when do you ever see it in large cities? Usually you do see them in suburbs. Now, what happened in Las Vegas happened, you know, but when you see the smaller towns, now I don't know why that trend is there, but when you really think about it and try to come up with when and the where, it usually happens in suburbs. So.
Come back to, for a minute, the question of juvenile crime in two parts. One is youth assessment center. Mm-hmm. So there was an attempt at a youth assessment center where MPD, and I believe your office could take kids there. Instead of taking them to juvenile court, you could potentially take them to an assessment center and keep them out of the justice system unless absolutely necessary.
Right.
That, I think by all accounts, that effort didn't really work. It was through the UTHSC. It was
a lot of logistics problems with that.
Okay.
Because when we brought them down to UT did not want us to have them handcuffed. Well, I'm not going to ask an officer to take anyone in custody and not put them in handcuffs. It's not safe for the officer. So we had a lot of logistic things that we needed to work out. So I think we're on track.
So there's a new youth assessment center being built, going to be run by the county this time. Why will this one work, and what, if it works, what will it accomplish?
Well, Dorcas Griffin will be over that center, and I think we still have some heavy lifting, but I think it will work. I think it will work because all of us want the same thing again, is to keep these kids out of the juvenile justice system. I really, you know, I talk to people all the time, and they say the school to prison pipeline, and you know, and so I really don't know what that looks like because I'm on the other side and I'm trying to fight to keep these kids out of the juvenile court system. When I was an assistant chief at the sheriff's office, I was one of the first chiefs that signed on to criminal summons, juvenile court summons, instead of taking these kids down to juvenile court. So I think we all want the same thing. We just got to figure out a way how to make it work.
To that end, too, we had Joyce Ray, Dr. Joyce Ray, superintendent of Shelby County Schools, on the show recently. You know, nationally and in Memphis, a lot during COVID, during virtual school, a lot of kids just sort of disappeared from the system. I mean, there were estimates as much as 25 or 30% of kids just not even logging into their computers every day, and then that is either coincidental to, or you know, a natural extension of that is a huge increase in juvenile crime nationally and locally. What is your relationship with SCS and with kids who are truant, delinquent, not showing up? We talked a little bit about that with Dr. Ray, but are you in communication with them? Do they refer chronic truant kids to you all, and do you go pick them up, or how does all that work?
Well, my relationship with Dr. Ray is great. Just had lunch with him last week, myself and Chief Davis. We talked about some things. Our SROs are on campuses, at certain campuses all throughout SCS. We're trying to, and this is something that I told Dr. Ray, is that we just don't draft officers to go to schools. Schools are special. They require an additional 40 hours of training. We have to put the right officer in that school because we're not trying to put these kids in jail. We want our officers to be mentors, someone that a kid can come and talk to if they're having an issue at school. So there's a lot of things that go into this with our SROs, our school resource officers. So.
Just 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes left. And then we could do a whole show just on this question of, but the driving issues, the drag racing, the dangerous high-speed driving. I think are you all back into patrolling the highways? One. And two, how can that be stopped? Or is that even a reasonable goal?
Well, we participated in Slow Down Memphis. We wrote over 400 citations during that time, and it's not something to brag on. All we were trying to do was correct behavior. I think there's a lot of things that is going on with the incidents out on the interstate. You got the Castleton doctrine, where people are allowed to carry guns in their cars. Now you're adding guns, you're adding speeding, and then these guys and girls, I guess, with these muscle cars now. I think we're just going to have to stay at it. I think the Tennessee Highway Patrol, I have had a conversation with Director Long at the governor's office, and he's promising us additional troopers down here in this area, because the troopers usually handle the interstate, and we've gone so many years without really patrolling the interstate.
Why did the state, I should know this, why does the State Patrol not monitor the highways here in the Memphis-Shelby County area? With 20 seconds left.
Well, it's very difficult to answer that question, but let me say this. In Nashville, you see a lot of troopers.
You see a lot of them.
In Memphis,
you see a lot of them starting around Jackson.
In Memphis, you don't, and we'll stop right there.
That you are also a politician. I appreciate you being here. We had many more things to get to, but we'll get you back.
Sure.
Thanks for being here. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Bill. And thank you for joining us. Join us again next week. Get full episodes of the show online at WKNO.org, or you can get the podcast of the show from the Daily Memphian site or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks.